guys, welcome to episode 4 of Thief. Are you guys amped? I'm amped. So in this episode, we're gonna start working on the head. We're done blocking it in, we're done sketching, and now it's time to actually start doing some of the detail work, which is it's almost too much fun. So what I'm doing now is I took the subtool, which is the actual part that is her head, and I put it in a different space. So now I don't have to worry about it affecting the rest of her body. I just have a clean workspace. And then I aligned it so I can use the X symmetry feature. So that means anything I sculpt on the right side will also happen on the left side and vice versa. So that's super helpful. So as I go into the face, I start thinking a lot about skeletal structure. So you got to think about the skull, but then also think about muscular structure. And then just start building up the forms and then defining it with a sharper tool. So there is a tool called Dam Standard, and that's a real hard point that you can jam in there and get fine details. While I can use clay buildup to create the real subtle shapes and move the clay around that way. Now you can see I zoom way out, and that's just a handy reminder to myself and even you as the viewer that this is going to be a tiny, tiny head. You know, you want to add detail, you want to just go crazy, because when you're looking at it on the screen, you see it with the same fidelity and detail that you would see a human head. And so, heck, you can add pores to the skin of a model. But you have to remember it's going to be so tiny when it's done that all of that detail will just make it more difficult to look at once it's at scale. So speaking of details that are probably too small to even worry about, I'm adding the eyeball and the eyelids. I find that when I'm painting a model, you can sort of track those details with the paintbrush, so it's good for it to be there. You want to have that detail there, but frankly, it's going to be too small for even like a wash to really show up. But on the druid, I did this level of detail on the face, and I really enjoyed painting that detail. So we'll see. It should be good. Now going into the hair. If you've studied hair or the drawing of hair or the sculpture of hair, you'll kind of recognize that there are strands, and hair tends to move in groups. So what I did first is went in with kind of a hard, boxy shaped tool, and I captured sort of the movement and the motion that I wanted for the hair. Now I'm coming in with a special tool called orb cracks, and I am cutting into and defining those shapes that I laid out a second ago. When you look at it this close, it may seem bulky, and that's going to be true of, hopefully, most of the features. If you saw her in person, her head should be too big, and her hands should be way too big, and those sorts of things. But I need to really focus on accentuating details if it's going to come up when it's at scale. Oh man, speaking of details that are probably way too much for a model at scale, here I'm adding her eyelashes. I did this also on the druid, and I found that there was kind of a potential to hit the eyelashes with a very fine paintbrush. And so even if in the model it doesn't matter that much, it'll help me get in the mood for this character if I just add little details like that sometimes. Now, I'm mostly worried about her hair at this point, but I did do the parts of the bandana that were going to be touching her hair, because there is going to be collision there. So I need to know how the hair is going to react. So here you can see me using the move tool to sort of shove the ponytail into the bandana that's tying it back. Now I went in again and drew in the large motions of the hair, and then now I'm cutting in again with the orb cracks to add the detail, but really it's defining those shapes that I put in. So I put in the large movements of the hair, and now I'm just cutting into it. And the ponytail is actually even bigger detail than the hair on her head, because frankly, when it's at scale again, even these giant hair spaces are going to be so small when you paint it. So yeah, definitely just trying to keep it in mind. Now the last step whenever you finish a part is always going to be to sort of criticize it and think about it. So we just look at it, shrink it down to about the right scale that it would normally be, and there you have it. That's a detailed head.